Ooh. Gosh, she is lively. Welcome to a new video. We're back on the bank and you join me on the syndicate. We're up on the EMBRYO syndicate, Phil's Lake in Abingdon in Oxfordshire, and we're doing about 24 hours, possibly a bit more. I might have the chance of sneaking in a second night, but we'll see how it goes. That's probably all going to be down to if I actually catch anything, but we're going to be trying to put some lovely scaly fish on the bank. There's some absolutely stunning fish in here, and if you haven't seen any of the recent videos, then I suggest you go and check out the back catalogue of content, because we've had some really nice sessions on Phil's and we've caught some stunning fish. We've actually got a Phil's playlist which will show you the fishing from the start when the syndicate first opened about 4 years ago up until the point of us fishing it now, and how things have progressed, the tactics we've used and how we've been getting on. So if you're looking at fishing a gravel pit, you're looking at getting on a syndicate, it might give you an idea of how to go about approaching them. And speaking of that, that's what I'm going to be doing in this video. I'm going to be showing you the tactics I use, all the little tips and tricks that I use to try and put fish on the bank, and I'm going to show you as much as I can to hopefully help you guys put a few more fish in your nets. Now later on in this video, I'm also going to be doing a little bit of a walk around a new bivvy I've got myself. Now I've had it for a couple of months and I'm very impressed with it. It's a lovely bit of kit, really good, and I think you guys are probably going to want to have a look at it. So I'm going to do a walk around of it later in this video. So if you're looking at getting yourself a new bivvy, that's definitely going to be something you're going to watch. So anyway, I've had a bit of a walk around. I think I've decided where I'm going to get in. I found a few fish, and let's go and get the kit, get some rods out in the pond, and let's see if we can get a few fish on the bank. I'm basically going to try and do exactly the same with what I've been doing in the past. So it's going to be 3 rods out on the spot towards the island, and put a bit of bait on there, see how the fish react to it. If it doesn't happen, I'll potentially move tomorrow. I'm going to just see how it goes, see if we can get any bites, and go from there. Now the fish have obviously spawned recently, like they have pretty much everywhere. We've had quite a lot of hot weather, and the lake's been shut for a bit, and they've really got it out of their system. There's been a few fish caught since, but it's definitely not been fishing as well as it was prior to them getting into spawning mode. So it might be a little bit tricky, but hopefully they've got it all out of their system. I'm going to be able to give them a little bit of bait. I'm hoping they're going to be hungry, wanting to recover after obviously getting all that spawning done. They use up so much energy when they're spawning, and like with most of us, once you use up energy, you need to replenish it, so you obviously want to have a good bit of food. So I'm hoping they're going to be up for a bit of feed. So anyway, let's stop talking, let's get the kit sorted, and see if we can put a few fish on the bank. So let's go and get some rods out. Right, so I've just done a couple of casts onto the spot that's obviously produced bites in the past. Now what I would say is, even if you fished the swim before and you know the zone is good, or it has been good in the past, always do a couple of casts with your leading rod before you go and commit to it, because you just never know. The feature can easily change. You know, we're fishing in a natural environment, things can change all the time, and the feature that you know is there could potentially not be there anymore. So I would always do a couple of test casts and just make sure the zone you're intending to fish is the clean spot that you think it is. So I've done a few casts off camera. I'm just doing a couple now just to make sure it's definitely as I want it, and it is, to be honest. It's donking down lovely. There's a very firm spot in particular, almost a spot within a spot, which is what you get a lot of the time. You always get a firmer area amongst the zone that you found, and that's probably where I'm going to concentrate the rods. So I just do one more. I'm bringing a little bit of weed back, but this weed is in front of the zone. As I'm bringing the lead back up, it's just catching on the weed in front of the actual spot itself. Ooh, I thought I wrapped it around the top then. You just line it up, punch right there, Bunk. Dunk down. Yeah. Oh, lovely. Right. Happy days. What we need to do is get the rod sorted, get them out there and get a bit of bait on it. Right, hopefully you can see this okay, but basically there's a load of weed in front of the swim, which is obviously going to get in the way if I catch anything and when I'm getting the rods out. Now, it's obviously been uprooted further out in the lake and it's just washed in on the wind, so I'm going to use the net handle and just scrape all that out and just put it on the side to dry out and hopefully die off. But yeah, one of the disadvantages of fishing bigger lakes and especially gravel pits with a lot of weed is that you've got to contend with a lot of weed, and this is very typical where you get weed dying off like this and it washes up on the bank, and yeah, it can get right in the way. So I'm going to bring it all out, put it on the side and clear it out to swim. So that is the next job before we get the rods out. Right, so I've got my net pole. Now, if you do this, be careful with your net pole because weed is extremely heavy when it's wet and you don't want to go putting too much pressure on your net because you will snap it. Trust me, I've done that before. But yeah, there's a lot of weed in front of this swim, so we're going to need to clear it all out. I can actually get a lot of this by hand. Oh, that's loads of it. But yeah, if you imagine you had a fish coming in and it got his head under that, you're then going to have to contend with all that weed as well as the fish. Also, it goes all up your lines, which obviously causes massive problems. So yeah, just try and clear out as much as you can and just give yourself a clear gap in front of the swim. You don't have to do this every time, it's just on this occasion the wind's obviously turned in here at some point and has brought a load of the weed that's just become uprooted, and it's just sat caught in between the reeds close in basically, and it's probably been slacking close here and it's just sat in the gap. But try and get out as much as I can. Right, I've removed all the weed from the front of the swim along here. I've got the bank sticks in. I'm fishing a goalpost setter because it is a very weedy lake. I'm going to be fishing a relatively tight clutch. Now, one thing I just thought I'd mention is when getting the rods done ready to go out on a spot, what I like to do is I like to wrap all 3 rods up to the spot, put all the rigs on them and then cast them all out one after the other. And the reason for doing that is because I find it's a lot more accurate. So what I found in the past, if I've wrapped a rod, put a rig on it, cast it out, then got the other rod out, wrapped it, put a rod on it, cast it out, and etc. with all the 3 rods. Now what I find doing it that way is you almost forget a little bit where the first rod went, so when you're putting the second rod out it's not going as accurate and it takes a little bit longer and a little more casts to get it onto the right spot. Whereas I find if you wrap them all first, get them all clipped up, put the rigs on and then cast them 1, 2, 3, I find it takes less cast to get them accurate and they all tend to go out a lot more easier and a lot more accurately than doing it the other way. Just a little bit of food for thought. I know Hugh does it that way as well. It's just something that we found just aids to sort of getting things more accurate and fishing more effectively. I'm sure a lot of people do it, but there might be people like that don't do it that way. So just a bit of food for thought. When you're getting your rods out, wrap them all up first at the start of the session, get your rigs all done, and then cast them all out 1, 2, 3, and you'll find it's a lot easier to get them bang on accurate when you're fishing 3 rods on the spot. So here's the rigs then, nice and simple, my standard rig that I like to use when fishing over bait. So this is a D-rig essentially on some soft coated braid. So it's about, I don't know, it's about 7, 8 inch, maybe 7 inches of tungsten loaded, ESP tungsten loaded in the semi-stiff. I've then got slightly different hook patterns. So I've got 2 on the Crygen grippers, ESP Crygen grippers, and I've got 1 on the ESP Parapoint, just because I like to try different hook patterns. I've got confidence in both of these hook patterns, and the rig sits slightly differently depending on what hook I'm using, and I like to just try it a little bit different just to see if it makes any difference with the hooking that I am the hook holes that I'm getting, just so I can sort of play around and adjust things accordingly. But I'm fishing 1 on a bug wafter, and then 2 on the like semi-fluoro wafters. 1's on a PB, 1's on a Fruitalicious, and that's generally what I go with initially at the start of a session. A couple of bright ones to try and catch your attention, and then 1 to try and match what is on the deck already, matching the freebies, and just see which produces the most bites. And then I change them accordingly. If I'm getting more bites on one or the other, I then tend to change them to whatever's getting the most bites. But last session I was getting quite a lot on the Fruitalicious, so potentially that might be the case this time around. But let's get them out and see what happens. So all 3 rods are out, pretty accurate. As you can see, they're sort of all going slightly inwards, which is because they're all on a relatively small spot. But it's quite a open, silty area with some firmer patches and then surrounded by weed. So if it does go a little bit left or right, it is still fishing. But obviously you want them as close as you can get them, so that when you're concentrating that bait down that line, the fish are going to be homed in on 3 hook baits really close together, so you've got more chance of picking off more fish and concentrating them, feeding in one zone. But yeah, it's looking good. But I'm going to sink the tips anyway, because there's a lot of drifting weed. I'm going to drop the front bar down so that the tips are sunk. And then every time I need to cast out, I can lift them up so that I can see where the lines are going and make sure everything's nice and accurate. But yeah, I'm going to sink them down, and hopefully that's going to avoid getting any weed on the line. So let's get that done, then get some bait out. Right, so we've got 3 rods fishing. They've been out for about an hour maybe. I've set the base camp up. There's the old Cyprinus Typhoon Max Headroom Ripstop edition. Obviously in the khaki, not the camo. You can get it in camo as well, but I went for the khaki as I don't know, just I think it's a little bit more carpy, to be fair. But anyway, rods are out at the moment. I'm just fishing 3 singles. I haven't put any bait in. I've been waiting for the wind to die for a bit, which it has, so I am actually gonna look at putting a bit of bait in on the spot as well now. And what I wanted to just show you quickly is if you've watched any of the previous videos in this swim, you may have seen that one of them I fished in a very stormy weather conditions. It was pouring down, we had hail, it was pretty bad and pretty torrential rain. And this swim turned into an absolute bog. Now I'll insert a bit of footage to show you, but it was an absolute bog, and I had essentially a river running between my legs when I was sat on the bed chair. It was awful, and the reason for that is because basically over the back you've got the River Thames, and when we get a lot of rain in the winter, obviously the Thames does get high and it does flood. And unfortunately, all the lakes along here, there's quite a few lakes in a row, they're all on the same water plane. And what happens is obviously the Thames floods, goes into all the lakes flood, and you end up with about 5 lakes, I think it is, end up just being one huge area of water. It just floods this whole area. And so you end up with several feet of water just covering all these swims. And so they end up just getting super boggy and just absolutely saturated, and it has got to the stage where they've had to close swims for quite a long time because we've just not been able to fish them because they've just been too boggy, and you end up just ripping up the ground and just absolutely ruining it basically. So what EMBRYO have done, and I'm really impressed by the work that they've put in, they've essentially decided to put a bit of time into it. So they've got some of the guys from EMBRYO over here putting a bit of labour, and they put in some work on the swims, and they've basically redone them. So this swim was an absolute bog. But if I turn the camera around, I can show you. We'll start at the top. So that's where you come in. As you can see, we've got some nice bit of timber as a border, but that goes all the way around the swim. And if you look at the swim now, it is lovely and re-barked. We've got some fresh bark. They've pulled up the underlay. There used to be an underlay underneath here, and I was chatting to a couple of the guys because they're actually doing a bit of work today, and they said that they've actually removed all the underlay because they found that the underlay actually holds the water and stays wet and stops it drying out. So what they've done is they've removed all that and just put a load of fresh bark on top of it, compacted it all in, and then they've basically built up the size of the swim. So you've got these lovely sort of wooden sides to the swim to keep it all in the swim, stop it all sort of falling away. And if you go down by the rods, you can see it's all done down here as well, so it's all lovely and firm, so you've got no issues playing fish, netting fish, and being able to return them. So they've done a really nice job, and yeah, it's a lot better than it was. It was an absolute bog a few months back. So fair play to the guys at EMBRYO. You've done a wicked job, and I am well impressed with that. Right then, so we've put a bit of bait over the top of the rods. I'll be honest, it didn't go as well as I wanted it to. I think my concentration levels aren't spot on today because I've come from a night shift, so I'm a little bit tired and I'm probably lagging a little bit. But I got a decent amount on the money. Quite a few went a little bit left and right. 1 or 2 went absolutely sailing to the right. I'm going to blame it on the wind and obviously the breeze, but probably more the fact that I was just casting and fishing badly. But I've got a few out there anyway. I've got about 12 or 15 on the money. Good bit of bait out there. As always, just using poly and pellet. I've got the I'm literally just using the DNA bug on this session. I've got some 12mm and 8mm. I've then got some of the 4mm bug pellets, matching pellets. I've got some of the mini cray mix, which absolutely honks, and then I've also got some of the house pellet, which is what the EMBRYO guys originally used to fish to feed the fish with at the start, to obviously get them growing and keeping them healthy. So I've got a good mix of that all, mixed it all up in a bucket, and then I just glazed it with a load of the DNA bug hydro, and also the liquid food additive as well. So I've basically left that soaking on them for, I think I put it on them yesterday, so probably about 24 hours or so now. And then when I've got it, I've put some lake water on it just to sort of get it to soften up a little bit. What I find is when you spot out dry bait, especially small pellets, it takes a little bit to get them to sink through the surface layers. So what I tend to do is actually wet it down a little bit before putting it out, because it makes it heavier essentially, and it gets it to fall down quicker through the water column. I just find it a lot more effective. If you put out just dry pellet, especially real micro stuff like the mini cray mix, it just doesn't sink down very well. So yeah, I always put a little bit of water on it, just binds it together a little bit as well, and then a spod. So as it goes down, it probably goes down a little bit more of a clump, and then sort of gradually sort of breaks up on the way down, and then sort of spreads out a little bit. But anyway, just a little bit of an idea if you do use stuff like that. Putting a little bit of water on your spod mix before you chuck it out on the spot is definitely a good idea. But anyway, I'm talking a little bit babbly at the moment, so we're going to leave it there. Rods are fishing, baits on the money. Let's hope we can have a fish. There we go then, first one on the spot. 17 pounder. Happy with that. Come on the middle rod on the Fruitalicious. What a lovely fish. Rod's have only been out a couple of hours, so hopefully it's a sign of good things to come. But we'll get her back. It's quite warm today, so let's get her back and see if we can get a few more. Happy days. Right, we're a little close up. That's because I've got the pancake lens on at the moment, because I've had a fish and I've just done a little bit of footage and put it back. Well, it was a while ago now actually. It was probably about an hour and a half ago. But yeah, I've had one 17 pounder, so not a monster, but nice to get a fish off the spot. Now since having that fish, I didn't put any bait out again because I thought I'd just see if anything else happened, and it's not. I've had a couple of potential liners. There's been a few fish showing, not loads, but the odd one sort of rolling. There's clearly a few fish still down this area. There's fish out there moving around, and I think it's a bit odd that I haven't had another bite. So that fish come on the middle rod, which is bang in the middle of the spot, which is going to be over the highest concentration of bait. So I think it's a bit strange that I've not had another one. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to bring all 3 rods in, re-wrap them. I'm then going to put some fresh hook baits on, put them back out, try and get them really, really tight, and then put another couple of spods over the top of them. It's gone pretty flat now. You might be able to see it. Yeah, you can see pretty well. It's gone pretty flat. So I think I'm going to be able to get the rods out a lot more accurate now that there's no wind. So I'm going to then leave them until obviously I have any more bites. And we're due to have a lot of rain in that tonight, so it's probably going to be a case of then battening down the bivvy and yeah, sort of being pretty much bivvy bound. But to be fair, I need some sleep anyway. I'm absolutely shattered, if I'm honest, after doing a night shift, so it's not a bad thing. So anyway, I'm going to bring these rods in, re-wrap them, get some new hook baits on, get them back on the spot, and let's give them a little bit of extra bait and see if that's going to produce another bite. But right, that's those 2 in. Oh, actually, it's just dawned on me, I've now got 2 on Fruitalicious, so actually that might have been on a PB, that fish that I just had. Unless this one's the PB and I actually had it on a food bait, which is interesting. I might have to change to the food baits. Let's see what this is when we bring this one in. I was convinced that was a Fruitalicious. I had that fish on. Oh, I had it on the food bait. That's interesting. So I didn't have it on the fluoros. Well, on that note, I'm going to fish 2 on food bait. That's interesting, that. I've had the bite on that as opposed to on the bright ones. Normally, the first bites tend to come on the bright ones, I find. Maybe that's why it was such a good hook hold, because it wasn't expecting, it took it with more confidence. It wasn't expecting it to have a hook on it. That could explain why it was such a good hook hold. That is quite interesting. Right, anyway, let's get some new baits on them. Right, so I've just brought the rods in, and I'm basically going to redo them all. Put some fresh hook baits on again. I mean, these have only been out there a few hours, but as I've brought them in, I'm going to redo the hook baits. Now, it turns out that fish that I had was actually on a food bait and not on one of the fluoro hook baits. I thought it was on a Fruitalicious, but it wasn't. It was actually on a food bait dumbbell, which might explain why it was such a good hook hold, because potentially the fish has taken it with a lot more confidence as it was just feeding readily on the bottom, and just thought it was another bit of the spob mix as opposed to being a brighter hook bait to try and draw its attention. So what I'm actually going to do now is put 2 food baits on and only put 1 of the fluoros on. So I'm going to put a Fruitilicious, a fluoro Fruitilicious, and I'm going to put 2 of the food baits on, which is what I had that bite on. So we'll see if that makes a difference and produces another bite, because I've basically redone the rod and just put another bright hook bait out, as opposed to putting another match the hatch hook bait on, which is what I actually had that fish on, which I didn't realise. So possibly the fact I haven't had a bite is because they're a bit cautious of the hook baits. I mean, I think there's been a few people fishing the spot, so it could be that the fish are a little bit more cautious. They obviously want to feed there, but maybe they're a little bit cautious in picking up the brighter hook baits. It might not be the case. It might have just been how it is, and that fish has just happened to pick that bait up. But I do think, looking at that the fish has probably been just feeding around on the spot, and it's just thought, it's not even thought it was anything, it's just sucked it in like it has the rest of the bait on the bottom, thinking it's part of that spob mix, and it's obviously got a hook in it, which might be why it was nailed so well, because it was just not expecting anything to happen. Whereas I think sometimes when they pick up the bright hook baits, they pick them up with a bit more caution. I think it's either one way or another. They either pick them up with more caution, or they just absolutely nail them because they take them on as a sight thing, as opposed to picking it up as just a food item on the bottom. But anyway, let's wrap these rods again and get them out there. So let's send them out. That's one. Oh yeah. Right, that one went out lovely. Quite a bit low. Right, rods are out, we're fishing. I'm really happy with those, that left in the middle one. Right rod's a little bit shorter, but I'm actually quite happy with that. I had a few fish last time I was here fishing a bit shorter, so we'll see how we get on anyway. But yeah, I'm happy with that. I think we've got a good chance. The wet weather's starting to come in, it's looking prime for a bite, but I need to get everything sorted out because I've got all the vents open on the brolly at the moment. Need to get the camera in the dry, and yeah, hopefully we can have another one. Right, thought I'd give you a bit of an afternoon update. Well, it's kind of early evening now, it's about 5:30, 6ish I think. But we've got a bit of a break in the rain again, so I thought I'd just update you while I can. Now, I did bring the rods in earlier on, went for a walk around, did about 3/4 of the lake. Only did 3/4 because there's 2 guys down the bottom end towards where the wind's going in, and I didn't want to go around disturbing them and bothering them, so I've just left them guys to it. But I looked around the rest of the lake where there's anglers free, and actually 2 of the swims are occupied by the EMBRYO guys, but they're doing work at the moment over on cables, so they're not actually fishing, but they have got bivvies and shelters and that in 2 of the swims. One of them, unfortunately, was in the boat, and that was the swim where I'd actually seen some fish show. So I'll be honest, it was a little bit frustrating seeing one of theirs in there, considering they're not actually fishing really at the moment. But at the end of the day, they're doing work on the lake, and they've put a lot of effort into trying to get the lake into good condition, so I can't fault them. They probably deserve to have a little bit of a fishing go as well and put a few fish on the bank, considering they've put time into work on the lake. So I'm not going to knock that, but it was a shame that the fish that I'd seen were showing in front of there. Although having said that, I haven't actually seen anything show out there since, so they've possibly moved off. Now there's a chance that the fish have moved down onto the wind, down where the other two guys are. I should really have gone and asked if they'd had anything, but I didn't really want to bother them, so I didn't go around there. But I've not seen anything show in front of me, but I've put the rigs back out. I've gone in slightly different on one of the rods, so I've got one on a 16mm bug wafter again, I've got one on a Fruitalicious 16mm wafter, and then I've got one on a snowman setup, and that's consisting of a 12mm bottom bait and a 12mm half-tone pop-up, both on the bug. And that just flutters down really nicely onto the deck. It looks really good. So oh hello. But yeah, I put those out about 3 o'clock-ish. After walking around, I went out to the shop as well and got myself a couple of tins of cider. So I put those out about 3 o'clock-ish, and then topped it up with a couple of more spods. I put about 6 spods out, I think, just to top it up again. And that's going to be me done now. If I get any bites, I'll obviously put a bit more bait out. But if nothing happens, I'm not going to bother putting any more bait out, I don't think. I'm going to just leave it, because I'm going to be off very early tomorrow morning. So yeah, I've got to be home by 7. So it's going to be a very early get up and go for me. So I'm going to pack most of the kit down when I go to bed later, and get it all packed down into the bags on the barrow, and then just put the waterproof cover over the top of the barrow just to stop anything getting too soaked. And I'm just going to have the essentials in the bivvy with me, and that means all I've got to do in the morning is pack down the bivvy and the bed and everything, and off I go. So speaking of bivvy, I thought I'd just show you it quickly, because I've had a few people ask about it. They've seen it on my Instagram stories, and they've seen it in some of these videos, so I thought I'd just show you it quickly. So I've got myself a new bivvy, and it was to replace the Tracker V2. I had a V2 brolly, and it was just not big enough. It was one of the standard ones, and I was forever getting my head whacked, like touching my head on the surface. I was forever getting condensation, so everything would always get damp. I'd end up brushing my head on the roof, and I'd end up with a wet head, and it just didn't have enough room generally around it. I've also got a new bed, so I've got a much bigger bed now. I've got the Avid Benchmark X, and it is a big bit of kit, and I ended up buying that because I basically upgraded the shelter, so I had plenty of room to be able to get a bigger bed. And with having the power barrow now, I haven't really got to worry too much about weight, because it kind of does the job for me. So I thought I'd just quickly turn it around and show you what I've got. So there she is. So that is the Cyprinus Typhoon Max Headroom in khaki green, and this is the ripstop version, so it's a much thicker material, and it's very, very waterproof. The rain just beads off of it, and you can actually just wipe it down. It is very, very impressive. So at the moment, as you can see, I've got the fronts rolled back. The reason for that is to get a bit of air inside, because it is a bit muggy today, but also it lets a little bit more light in. So these are solid panels that roll back on here. It's the same material as this, and when they're rolled down, it's quite dark in there, because you've only got light coming through that main door section. And so what I do is I just roll them back when it's dry, and as you can see, it allows a lot more light in, and yeah, it just makes it a little bit less dark. It's a little bit dark over there, because obviously the sun's not coming from that way, but yeah, it just gives you a lot more light inside. Now, I've got my little Corum chair. That's like my day chair that I use for fishing. It's actually not got long enough legs. As you can see, it is floating at the moment because the bed's so high. But that's obviously just to prevent my back from getting sore, as I've had issues with my back in the past, which is another reason I decided to get a bigger bed and bigger bivvy, is because this one's really, really high. There's loads of room above my head in there. It's probably a good sort of 8 inches at least above my head, if not more. Yeah, you've got a lot of space in there, so you can sit up perfectly straight on the bed when you're sat on a chair like that, and you don't touch the ceiling, which is really nice. But everything you can see comes supplied. So basically you get the storm poles, you get the pegs, you get different fronts to go on the door. So you've got like a clear panel, a mozzie panel, and also a solid panel which go onto the front. You have these storm poles provided which are magnetic. So basically inside here you've got a little cap which you screw onto the screw thread, and it's got a magnet on there, so you can just slot it on and it just clips in place. So you haven't got to screw these on every time, you just leave the caps attached to this section, and it means that when you go to set it up, you just literally just lift this up, it slots in there and it just holds it in there, and this is held under tension, so when you extend the storm pole it holds it nice and solid. I haven't actually got it really locked in at the moment because it's not that windy, but yeah, it holds it really solid. The design of it, if you look, it's got these legs, so you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that go all the way around, and it is exactly like a Tempest. It's basically designed around the Tempest, so when it's all rolled up it folds down to a half length of one of these, so it splits here, so obviously that then folds back on itself, and so it's almost sort of the length of one of those half legs. And basically when you get it out, you unfold it, slot these all together, put the legs together, fan them all out, and then you essentially put these additional arms into the block here. So on a Tempest you pull it over, you've got like a cam mechanism that pulls over, and then it kind of goes into a little collar around here. On this one what you've got is these 3 separate mini arms which are adjustable, and basically they slot onto 3 little notches here, and then you just extend them and then lock them in place, so you can have it under as much tension as you can. You can obviously really extend these fully and have it really taut, or like I've done, I've just sort of lobbed it on there and put it up. But yeah, that's how that works. You've got your standard rod holder on each side, just obviously a little bit of spare material, a little bit of a Velcro fastening, and you've got one on the other side. I've got the spod rod linked against that at the moment. You've obviously got the front windows, like I've said, which are just mozzie. You don't get a clear panel on them. That is just a mozzie. It's not even infill, it is just, that is sewn in, and then this just folds back, and you've got a zip, it zips down and then velcros at the bottom. If I come around the side, so every single panel, you might be able to see, it's got a window, and that window is a mozzie mesh. So basically you can roll this all the way up, these are zipped in underneath, and you can unzip that side, unzip the other side, you can then roll that up, and it's got some elastic underneath here. There you go, it's got some elastic toggles, and then it just holds it up underneath this flap, and then you've basically got a mozzie panel, and you've got that on every side, so the whole thing, you can roll all of these up and you've got airflow going through the whole thing. And I am really bad in warm weather, I really struggle with heat, and having got this shelter I've really got on, well, much better. I've found it really comfortable, because what I can do is I can open the front panels, have the door up, and then you might be able to see them there you go, you can see the mozzie, the mesh that's sewn in. You can have each one of these open, so you've got one there, and then you've got one there and one there. You can roll them all up, and so you've got all that airflow that can pass through, and you can sit in there in the shade with a load of air going through it, and it is very cool. It stops you getting really hot, so it's actually really nice. So I don't mind fishing in such warm weather now. It's actually a lot more comfortable, and yeah, they go all the way around. You've got your little Cyprinus logo on the back, but that's it basically. It's basically like a Tempest, generally speaking. Now when you go inside, and hopefully there's enough light to show you this, but up here you might be able to see you've got a separate skin. So this comes supplied, this isn't an additional extra, and this is a vapor shield. So as you can see, I can get my hand in the back of there, and there's probably half an inch to an inch gap, and that goes around the whole of the top, and that is essentially a vapor shield. And the idea of that is it stops the condensation, and it works. It really does work. Very nice idea, and it's really simple. It's just got these little toggles. Don't know why you can see them, but it's got these little toggles They go through some little rings that are sewn in, and before you set it up you attach the vapor shield, put it all in, and then when you set it up it's obviously already in there ready to go, so you don't have to remove it when you pack it down. It stays all inside, and yeah, it's a really nice idea. That I really like it. It's made a huge difference to how comfortable it can be inside here. Now room wise, it's got loads of room. So that is the Avid Benchmark X, which is an extra large bed chair. It's absolutely massive, and as you can see I've got plenty of space down there. On the other side I've got more. You can see I've got even more space that side, and the reason for that is I have the head end slightly further towards the door, and then the bottom end slightly further towards the back, so that means I've got more room one end. And then what I do if I come inside is all my food kit and everything goes in the corner. So I've got a freezer bag, brew kit, I've also got my water, a few liquids and stuff to keep me hydrated, I've got the kettle and everything, Ridge Monkey's on top of there. And then what I do is under my bed, so if I need to get into this I just lift the tail of the bed up, and under there I've got my barrow bag, and that is my camera bag, so that's got all my camera gear in it. And then I've got my barrow bag, which is essentially what has all my main bits of tackle and stuff, which goes in the centre of the barrow when I load it up. And then at the back I've got a spare day brolly, which is like a 50-inch brolly, and then the bag which the bivvy goes in. I put that at the back, out of the way, and that's it. So obviously you've got my GoPro, that's the tripod for the camera I'm currently holding. I've got my second larger tripod down there for my other camera in case I want to use a couple to get some different shots. And then on the other side got a tin of cider. I've just got a bucket with some bits and bobs in, which I kind of use as like a little bit of a bivvy table, rubbish bag in the corner. Underneath I've just got my Ridge Monkey mini buckets, so one of them's got my solid bag kit in, and one of them's got my system pellet and what I call my sort of standard rigs, standard setup, and then the stuff on top of it essentially goes in that bucket. Got an umbrella because I hate wearing waterproof, so if I can get away with it I just use an umbrella if I need to go out in the rain, and just hold the umbrella while I'm out in the rain instead of having to put waterproofs on, because when it's warm I find it so uncomfortable trying to wear waterproofs. I find you end up so hot and sweaty, you get just as wet inside the waterproof as you do on the outside. Then at either end you've got a little pocket which you can put a few essentials in. I've got my car key and that in there at the moment, and I've got my remote for the camera for doing photography, and then you've obviously got one down the other end as well down there. You do get a ground sheet supplied. I'm not using the actual main ground sheet because it is quite big, and what I find with full ground sheets is they end up getting really dirty, so I use a half ground sheet. So that is a Think and Anglers barrow cover, ground sheet, whatever you want to call it. I've got two of those, so I have one at this end and that's where all my essentials go. So obviously I've got my camera kit and everything down there. I want it to stay dry, so I put one just at one end of the bivvy, which normally is at the tail end of my bed, and that's where I keep all of that stuff. And then at the top end I don't have one because up here I've just got buckets, so if it gets a little bit damp up there it really doesn't bother me. And that is the setup. So yeah, it's a lovely bit of kit. At some point, let's turn the camera around a minute. At some point I will do a bit of a video of setting it up and packing it down, just to show you how easy it is. But if you've owned a Tempest or seen one, it is essentially as simple as that. I've got a video from quite a while back of me setting up the Mark 1 Tempest and showing you how quickly it goes up. So if you want to know how quickly this thing's set up, it is just a little bit, takes a little bit longer than that, because this has got the 3 poles on the front to put into the little fixtures. But generally speaking, it is really quick. I think with practice you could probably get it up in a couple of minutes fully. You know, you really could. Pegged out and everything, probably a couple of minutes at the most I would have thought. It's really, really nice. Obviously if you want to put the proper ground sheet in, it's got a zip, so it will take you a lot longer to do that. That takes a bit of messing around, which is another reason I don't use it. But yeah, fantastic bit of kit. I know that was quite a long bit of a video segment, but I just wanted to show you it and let you see what it was like. So it is a lovely bit of kit, and it's really worth the price tag. So I think retail, it's about £500 odd, £550. But what I would suggest yourselves doing is Cyprinus do an online auction. So every day, I think it's every day or possibly every Friday, but they have an online auction where you can bid on items of their kit. So they put up selected items, they might have say 4 or 5 items on the evening, and you can bid on them up till 10 PM I believe. And I basically did that on this. So I actually bid on this, and I happened to do it on a day where it didn't seem like anyone else was bidding, because I ended up getting it for a really good price. I think I got it for just shy of 400 quid in the end. So I basically saved 150 quid off the actual retail price of this thing. So I was really chuffed with that. And the retail price in itself I would have been fine with, because having used it, it's definitely worth the money. But the fact that you can bid on them on auctions, I think it's a brilliant idea, and it's a really good way of creating some extra business, which is obviously why they do it. But yeah, I'd recommend checking out the auctions, because you never know, you might be able to get yourself a bit of a bargain like I did. But yeah, if you're interested in it, it's the Cyprinus Typhoon Max Headroom in khaki ripstop. And yeah, go and have a look and see what you think. But anyway, that's the end of that massively long segment. Hopefully you haven't fallen asleep. But I'm going to go and finish off my tin of cider, watch the lake for a bit, and hopefully we'll have a fish to show you next time. But fingers crossed, let's see what happens. So as you can see, it's well and truly dark now, and we're probably a couple of hours into darkness. Now I'm literally gonna get my head down in a sec and get in a bag. But yeah, I'm not massively hopeful, if I'm honest, of getting a fish in the night. I just haven't seen many night captures reported, and myself and Hugh haven't had anything at night so far this season. So I don't really feel like it's going to happen just because of that, to be honest. But you never know, I could get a bite out of the blue and catch one. But I think if anything's going to happen, it's going to be in the morning at first light, just before I have to pack up. So fingers crossed we can get another one, because it'd be nice to get another fish and put another one on the bank. But at the end of the day, it is fishing. I had that bite really quick within a few hours of getting the rods out, and then obviously nothing else has happened. So I don't know whether the fish have moved out, and that was just sort of, there maybe were 1 or 2 sort of left in the area when I got here, and then they've drifted out as that wind's picked up maybe and gone down towards the other end where the wind's pushing in. I really don't know. But yeah, it's there's not much more I could do. There was nowhere I could really move to that looked good. I'd seen a couple of fish in front of that boat swim, but like I said, someone had got a bivvy in there, so it was out of bounds for me. So I couldn't really do a lot more. I'd not seen any fish show anywhere else, so it was just a case of having to sit it out and see if it happened. So let's just hope the next time you see me, I'll be holding a fish up at some time in the morning, possibly in the night. If not, I'll just give a bit of an outro to end the session. But hopefully you've liked it. But it's not over yet. It's not over yet. We've still got a few hours to go. So let's just hope I can finish it off with another one. But anyway, I'm going to get in a bag and see you in the morning. So that is the end of the session. You might be able to tell the background is totally different. That's because I'm not on fills, and that's because I didn't have time to film an outro on the morning when I packed up, and that's because I really had to rush and get back because I had to be home to look after the lads. So unfortunately nothing happened on the second night. I didn't have anything else, so it was just the one fish, but it was nice to get a bite and the tactics were still working. I think the fish were just a little bit finicky after spawning, and they just weren't properly on it yet. So hopefully the next time I go back, which shouldn't be too long, I can have another couple. And hopefully you've liked the video and you've enjoyed it. Now, you might be able to tell I'm on a different lake, like I've said, and the reason for that is because I'm going to be filming a new series, hopefully looking at low stock, how to approach low stock venues. And I'm going to be fishing another venue more on sort of weekends when I've got time to get out on the weekend. So with fills I can only fish it midweek, and I wanted somewhere I can fish like a Friday night or a Sunday night when I get the nod from the missus. So and to be actually looking at doing a little bit of a mini campaign on a completely different water, somewhere I've not really fished before, somewhere new for you guys to see, and hopefully I can show you a little bit of a different style of fishing lower stock waters for slightly trickier fish, and hopefully along the way we'll catch some absolute chunks, because the water's got some really nice fish in it, and yeah, hopefully we'll be able to show you a few of those along the way. But I hope you like this video. If you do, remember to subscribe if you're not already. Click that bell icon for up-to-date notifications. Follow all the social media at the bottom of your screen now, so you can keep up to date on what we're doing. And you can also join us on the bank live a lot of the time, because we film and upload onto the Instagram story, so you can follow us live as the events unfold. But until next time, thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and we'll see you again soon.